This is From Hero to Zero, a show about the misconception of the demise of the music industry. We talk to heroes to make sense of the alleged zero, the music business. Hi Bill, how are you?
Hi, very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for taking time and talking with us about your project, Snarky Puppy, and other things.
You got it.
Bill, you are a piano player, you're a producer, you play with Snarky Puppy, now you're touring with your own project. You're a Grammy Award winner, sure, have to mention that. And you started playing maybe a couple of decades ago, so in the 90s. So our mandatory question, where do you see the difference between today, 2016, and the pre-internet era as being a musician? How did you perceive the changes?
Wow, that's an interesting question. It's a funny one, you know. I think a lot of people always would say that the internet made the industry much more difficult in terms of selling records, because obviously people can share music and stream music much more easily without necessarily having to pay for it, you know. And so from one perspective it is more difficult, but I think ultimately it's about turning that on its head and asking yourself how you can use the way that the industry is developing to your advantage. So, you know, now you can share your music with the rest of the world in one click, you know, and that's actually a real advantage that we never had before as independent musicians and artists. So I think, you know, it's just kind of trying to make the internet work for you is the key. But, you know, I think ultimately technology is always going to evolve, and you know, I think it's an artist's sort of obligation almost to accept that and to engage with it and you know, evolve with it and use it in your creative evolution as best you can, you know.
Sure. So basically nowadays physical CDs or vinyl is not sold as much as it used to be, so there's more focus on views or streams. Does it bother you to a certain extent not to sell more physical?
Yeah, it's funny you ask, because we were debating this last night with my band. We were all kind of, you know, debating the pros and cons of vinyl versus MP3s, and you know, there's obviously something very timeless about the sort of visceral experience of holding a piece of vinyl, you know, and the artwork, and that's always going to be a special thing. But as I say, I think, you know, the advantage with MP3s is that people can share things so much more easily, and I don't know though. I'm definitely a purist when it comes to vinyl. I've got a record player, and I always, well, you know, for the most part, listen to music on vinyl. So it's just a very different experience, and it makes more of a ceremony of the experience. You know, like actually, halfway through the record, you've got to get up and turn it over, and you know, I think that adds to the whole ritual of digesting the music. You know.
Very nicely said. There is a school of thought that claims that having digital music, which of course is easier to share, as you just mentioned, but it devalued music. What is your opinion on that?
I think to a degree it does. You know, I mean, I think it's the fact that it's taking away the physical experience, the physical product. And you know, there is an ease with which we can share music now, but it does detract from the fact that it's so easy. Kind of makes us, I think, lazier as listeners in a way. You know, we just click and it's there, and it's just a view and a stream, and that kind of effortlessness, I think, cultivates a sense of complacency from the listener almost. So I'm pioneering to, you know, try and get vinyl back as best I can, you know.
Please do. I'll help you with that. Cool. You mentioned independent artists. So your 3 solo efforts, they came out, or the third one is coming out on Ground Up, which is the label that basically Snarky Puppy started, if I'm correct,
That's
or
right.
Michael League, or in collaboration.
Absolutely.
Where do you see the opportunities and threats as an independent artist compared to maybe going major today?
Well, it's again a tricky one. It's a hard dance you have to gauge, you know. I mean, you know, I think the ideal is to get the best of both worlds, which is kind of what Ground Up have just signed, because my new album Aftersun is coming out on the 4th of March, and it's coming out on Ground Up Music, but Universal Classics are distributing it. So we are kind of, in essence, still an independent label, but we have a kind of global distribution. So, you know, I think that it's actually the first time that this kind of deal has ever been struck, apparently. So we'll see what happens, you know. But we're hoping it's kind of the best of both worlds. So you still get, the artist still has complete say over, you know, the way the album sounds, the way the album looks, but it can still be put out in, you know, all the major shops all over the world. So if you can strike that balance, that's like the golden ratio, shall we say, you know. So that's what we're working towards anyway.
Very nice. Talking about social media, I saw that many, maybe all of your songs can be streamed for free on YouTube, for instance, and many are also videos which you yourself or with Andy LaViolette produced. Some artists say that is cheating, basically giving away for free your music. What is your opinion on that? Obviously, you share them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the industry is as such that, you know, it's impossible to avoid having your music streamed for free these days. You know, like, I mean, I remember I was on tour with Snarky Puppy earlier this year, and we were in South America, and after the gig, a lot of people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh man, I love your records, I love your music, you know, when are you going to come and tour here?" And I was like, "Oh, cool. Have you got the albums? Did you buy the albums?" No, Spotify, we're just listening on Spotify, you know. Everybody is listening to it, but they're listening to it for free on Spotify, and the way the system works with Spotify is definitely not in favor of the artist at all, and that definitely needs to change. There's no question about that. But, you know, it's a grey area because people will always be able to share and stream online, you know, because it's just this intangible sharing network. It's very hard to kind of put a cap on it, but I don't know. It's a tricky one. Spotify, you know, is good because it's you know, there are people in South America who know my music now, you know, and without Spotify maybe they wouldn't, you know. So there comes a point where you have to sort of shake hands with Spotify for a moment just to get your word, you know, your name out there, I think, you know, and take that for a while. But then certainly if I am ever in a position to be able to take myself off Spotify, I will certainly do that.
But for the time being, of course, it helps to discover your music.
Absolutely, yeah. It's you know, it's a good platform, you know, from starting point, you know.
Income generation is always or has always been, but nowadays with artists using crowdfunding is a bigger topic. Have you ever considered to use a platform like Pledge Music or Kickstarter to fund your album,
Sure.
or use it as a communication platform?
Sure. You know what? I haven't. I've tried to just do things off my own bat, I feel like. And it's not to say I'm against the idea. I think it can be hugely beneficial, you know, for getting artists off the ground. There's no doubt. But personally, I'm trying to kind of keep. I don't know. I just sort of want to try and do it off my own back. You know, it's just sort of the way I'm doing things. So I run a music production company, and you know, I write music for commercials and stuff, and that's helped me kind of realize these two, all three of these albums that I've made. So, you know, I'm just trying to kind of keep these things in balance, so one can enable the other. You know?
Sure. You almost answered my next question. So you have a music production company, 20,000, I think it's called, where you produce jingles and so on for Nokia, HP, Sky Broadcasting, I read. And as we mentioned before, you also teach. So you're a teacher, music teacher, and of course you're a musician, an artist. Was that, is it a financial necessity, or is it, how can we put it, an intrinsic motivation for self-actualization? Very nicely said.
Wow, okay. It's a bit of both, I would say. Okay. I'm partly interested in all these things, and I wanted to kind of explore these things. You know, I've had some great teachers over the years, and certainly very much the Snarky Puppy sort of mantra is to give back to the education system, because we've all felt like we've benefited enormously from the education system. So we're very hot on doing clinics, and you know, and I teach privately a lot when I'm back in London. I have lots of sort of private pupils who come and see me. So I'm doing that, you know, both because of my love for doing it, but also, yeah, it's certainly a revenue stream, you know, one revenue stream. And I think this is the thing, I think what we have to do as artists these days is find as many revenue streams as we can. I mean, you know, so I've got this production company where I'm writing jingles for commercials. I've got the teaching. I'm actually about to put my scores for all my, well, certainly the first 2 records, and just put them online to buy as well. So you can now be able to buy all the scores for Flint and every song, you know, so students or musicians can download the scores and be able to play them through, you know, and that's like another potential revenue stream. So I think if you have all these, you know, small revenue streams, then eventually you can be, you know, sustain yourself, I think.
Sure. Well, Bill, thank you very much. It was very interesting. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
See you again.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.